All right, Bulls and Bears, welcome back to another episode. Let's get right into it. Economic reality is the bankers, the politicians, the powers that be, the money printers. They're out there trying to convince everyone that everything is fine, everything's normal, that ever since 2020, we've been on what do they call it, an economic recovery. How many times did we hear that? People started noticing inflation was a big problem. What, over 2 years ago now, 3 years ago, they said it was temporary, it was transitory. Here we are. Inflation hasn't come down. They stopped talking about deflation. They stopped talking about price levels coming down to affordability. Now they're just talking about cooling inflation. And there's no signs of it stopping because banks have been guaranteed a get out of jail free card to infinity. To infinity. Back in the financial crisis, banks were tightening lending. Right now, we're seeing loosening lending. In fact, instead of tightening, they're allowing people to go deeper and deeper and deeper into debt. Let's go ahead and start right here. Out of the Business Times, U.S. consumer borrowing rises the most in 3 months on credit cards. Folks, this just alone, this article should tell you exactly what is happening here. Consumer borrowing increased in May by the most in 3 months, reflecting a jump in credit card balances. Total credit outstanding rose by 11.4 billion after a revised 6.5 billion in April, according to the Fed data here. Bloomberg economists called for an 8.9 billion increase for May. Actually came in at 11.4, so much higher than expected, right? People think that banks should be tightening right now, that it should be very difficult to borrow money, especially unsecured debt, credit card debt. Just the opposite's happening, folks. So it looks to me like banks are in on this scheme to keep the economy going, to make sure that nothing bad happens. Because as soon as the debt or the credit ends, when people can no longer go deeper in credit card debt, this whole economy comes down very quickly, right? So it's continuous debt. That's why you see the debt levels never stop increasing everywhere from the national debt to consumer debt. Every once in a while, you'll see a pullback on consumer debt, but that's at times of recession and economic downturns. Again, that's the last thing they want to happen, especially now, 4 months until November. Everybody knows, why they would want to keep the economy looking good at this time. Well, let's go ahead and get into some other news here. We've got some predictions out there of $27,000 per ounce gold. That's Jim Rickards in a recent interview. And there's more talks about going back to the gold standard. Here's just a few articles here. And I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but something big I think could be announced in the next few months as far as the gold standard front or a gold-backed currency. Now, just because there is a gold-backed currency that's coming out doesn't mean that's going to be all there is. There's still going to be other types of trade. There'll still be fiat dollars being traded, but the re-implementation of a gold-backed currency would be the beginning of something big, in my opinion. And it's not just me saying that. Look at all these sources out here saying that FX Street is the world lurching back to a gold standard. Let's see what else here. Kitco, signs that a global gold standard is gaining traction. Steve Forbes. Forbes, the signs are there. The gold standard is coming back. See another headline here. Economist Jim Rickards discusses U.S. dollar decline and potential $27,000 gold. Folks, something big is on the horizon. I think you can feel it in the air. Something's in the air, and I think we can all feel it, right? No one knows exactly what's going to drop, but to me, what I think is going to drop this year is going to make 2020 look like a sideshow. It look like a what's the saying goes? Look like a walk in the park. Folks, something big is going to drop here. Will it be something as far as a policy change? Will we see something really dark get revealed out of the banking system? Will it be some sort of attack? Will it be World War III kicks off? All right. Many people are arguing that World War III has already started. If you look at all the conflicts happening across the globe right now, will the U.S. get more heavily involved? Will we be will we see a strike here on U.S. soil? Will we see something big happen, like a 2001 type of thing here on U.S. soil, right? So as the economy gets deeper into the point of no return, the risk of those things happening really jump up, very, very drastically, right? But some other stories here I wanted to get into today. Consumers are really struggling the cost of living. Um, a lot of people just go out and spend money on entertainment because they don't have a home to put it into, right? So many people priced out of the housing market, so people are saying I might as well go pay $5,000 for a Taylor Swift ticket, whatever it costs. Might as well go spend $600 to watch a football game, whatever those cost now. 46% of Americans are still paying off last summer's credit card debt. What's amazing to me and to a lot of people is how long this continues to go on, right? How are people continuing to take on this debt, not paying off their debt at a interest rate that's 20+% on these credit cards? How are they continuing to get by without all these borrowers, all these debtors filing massive amounts of bankruptcy, right? It's pretty amazing. A lot of people are playing the balance transfer game. We talked about that a few times here, where you transfer the balance, 0% interest rate for a year, transfer it again, 0% interest rate. There's a lot of moving money around in that way. People pulling money out of their retirement accounts. And what was it, 2 or 3 reports ago, we talked about almost half the people now are no longer contributing to their retirement account. They've either dropped the amount they're contributing into their 401k or retirement account, or they completely stopped contributing to it. Um, zero into your savings every paycheck. So that's a bad sign. And I think that's one of the keys to trying to figure out how people are getting by with all these amounts of debt, with 46% of Americans still paying off credit card debt from last summer, right? How does that interest not compound to be so much that you max out your credit cards? It's pretty amazing how things are continuing to chug along here. Talk about this here. Got a big CPI report coming out this Thursday. The Fed has said it needs further confirmation before rate cuts. They need further confirmation that inflation is cooling. Is that deflation? Is that price levels coming down? No, it's prices going higher and things becoming more unaffordable, but going up at a slower pace. That's their definition, not mine, but their definition of cooling inflation. And prices continuing to go up higher, but slower than they were going up previously, might be enough for a rate cut, which is insane. Insane, right? It just means they're going to make inflation much worse. But remember, where there's inflation, there's the illusion of economic growth, right? Look at all the countries that had hyperinflation. Look at Venezuela, look at Zimbabwe, look at Weimar Germany. All these places going into hyperinflation had very nice looking economic growth, because when the dollar gets more devalued, or when the currency gets devalued, people have to spend more money on whatever it is they buy. Banks have to loan out more money. Companies have to pay more to keep up with the cost of living for their employees. And that makes the economy actually look like it's good, looks like it's growing when people are spending more money. But when you're spending devalued dollars, that's very dangerous. But this is the game that's being played in order to create the illusion of economic growth, is massive money printing. Now, some people say, well, the dollar's not crashing, the dollar's still strong. It is, compared to other fiat currencies that could also be created in infinite amounts at the click of a mouse, right? So what is the dollar, though? What can it buy you? Look the cost of everything, right? If the dollar was strong, we would have lower prices, and your money would actually go a lot further. You wouldn't have most of the population priced out of the housing market. You wouldn't have people struggling to pay rent right now. You wouldn't have to have all these debt forgiveness and payment cancellation programs. Things would be much different. So we'll see what happens in that Thursday CPI report. I'm reporting this today. You're watching this most likely on Tuesday. So we have a couple days to see how that's going to play out. Another report here out of Benzinga: credit card debt rises as consumers face higher costs of living. And again, when the banks stop letting people go further into debt, when they drop credit ceilings, and when they lower down credit limits, that's when this whole ball game comes to an end very quickly. So they can't let that happen. Banks are going to continue to loan out money. That's why the banks still have this zero reserve requirement ever since 2020. Originally put in as an emergency temporary situation to allow the banks to do that just to get the economy through the tough time. Well, here we are 4 years later, and the emergency program is still being utilized right now by the banks. So no one else is going to tell you this, folks. I think I might be the only channel talking about this. Maybe there's other ones. I don't watch, of course, all the different hundreds of channels that are reporting on the economy, financial news, etc. But the ones that I do watch are not talking about this. I'm not sure why. Repossessions ticking up here, so we're starting to see some pretty interesting news stories. Here's one. Louisville skyscraper repossessed. Well, I'm sorry, that's not the one I wanted to bring up first. Actually, we'll talk about that in a second here. But the one I wanted to bring up next: Atlantic City woman crashed vehicle with kids inside while avoiding repossession. Folks, if you're going to get your vehicle taken, just let them take it. Right? They're going to find it eventually. They're going to track it down. And you have your kids in your car with you, and you're trying to run from the tow truck. Was she running from the tow truck? Atlantic City woman was accused of crashing into several vehicles. Wow. With their children inside her vehicle, which was being repossessed. 32-year-old person in Atlantic City charged with endangering the welfare of a child. Yeah, vehicle being repossessed. Speaking with Robertson, the tow truck driver, right? Tow truck driver's there, and she decides she's going to run and crash into a bunch of other vehicles with her kids in the car, right? This economy, this financial situation, the repossessions, the everything, the debt, it's making people crazy. And you see a lot more domestic situations come up, a lot more relationship problems come up when there's lots of debt for obvious reasons. Back to the other article, though. Downtown Louisville skyscraper repossessed after defaulting on a $28 million loan. We have over $500 billion in commercial real estate loans on the banks right now, underwater. And we're told that the banks have A++ ratings, AAA ratings. They all the banks passed the stress test. All the big major banks. They didn't tell you about the 60-something banks that are on death watch or on the bank's failure watch list, right, out of the FDIC. But the ones that went through the stress test supposedly passed with flying colors, even though we have a lot of more buildings are still going into foreclosure. And just an example of that one in Louisville. We're told it's just the regional banks. Very interesting. We're going to see how this plays out here. So will the regional banks fail, and will they just get bought up by the big mega banks, more banking consolidation? A lot of us here believe that's definitely what is happening. Something else I wanted to get into, Sam Ash Music Store I used to go to quite a lot. I used to go to Guitar Center back when I was doing the whole band thing and playing drums and all this stuff. Now, and to sidetrack a little bit here, this Sam Ash article made me think about some things. Sam Ash Music Stores assets being acquired for 15.2 million. Mexican company Goner is purchasing almost all the assets following the music retailer's Chapter 11 bankruptcy. If you've been to a music store like Guitar Center or Sam Ash, mostly guitars, drums. It's mostly live instrument types of things, right? But if you listen to the top 10 songs, hardly any of them have any live instruments, right? I listened to the top 10 songs just like last week. Didn't hear any guitars in any of the songs. All the drums were electronic or programmed, right? They weren't real or acoustic drums like you would go and buy at Sam Ash. Sam Ash and other music stores, Guitar Center, which also I think went bankrupt, they do sell electronic equipment as well, electronic music, keyboards, stuff like that. But to buy Sam Ash's assets, I think is very risky, especially when hardly anyone, I shouldn't say hardly anyone, popular music really doesn't utilize live instruments very much anymore. Still, a lot of people play guitar, mostly just for hobbies or for live shows. But as far as like the popular music, it's just not there, right? It's not like the 80s or the 90s or even the early 2000s when you had a lot of songs that were rock, like live drums, live guitars. Just my thoughts on that. Sam Ash Music Stores, assets being bought up here. Before we wrap this up here, Hurricane Beryl, it was going to get downgraded to a tropical storm. It's now a Cat 1 hurricane, the last I read here. We've got casualties, more than 2 million. I think it's close to 3 million now. Power outages on the Gulf Coast. We have several viewers from the Gulf Coast. I remember plenty of Houston people talking about where they're from, Corpus Christi. And I remember having a conversation about Corpus Christi, and whoever was saying they live there said, we hardly ever get bad storms here, even though we're on the coast. So I hope everybody's good because, I had talked about moving out of California several times, and I talked about Texas might be the place to go, lower cost of living. Kind of expensive in Texas now with all the people that already moved there over the past 4 years. Same thing with Florida. Florida used to be kind of a cheap place. Now it's not. Depends on where you go, though. Right? Big states. But hope everybody's good. Hope we're not suffering through these storms right now. We got wildfire season kicking off here in California. Hopefully it won't be too bad, but I have a bad feeling, folks. I have a bad feeling that this big thing that I feel that you feel and that I feel both. I think something big is going to happen this year. Will it be drastic weather events, like unprecedented? You let me know down in the comments, folks. And as always, keep stacking. And we'll talk to everybody soon. Big love. Peace.